With Artemis 1 finally making its first successful flyby of the moon right now and providing a much needed shakedown cruise for NASA's SLS rocket and Orion spacecraft, and we know that the role of the HLS lander for Artemis 3 is going to be played by a lunar variation of the SpaceX Starship. That means all eyes are on SpaceX right now as they push towards the first test flight of the Starship and Super Heavy launch system. What does the future hold for SpaceX and NASA on the moon? It looks like that test has been successful, assuming that re-entry of the capsule next month goes according to plan. That's likely to happen in the year 2024, hopefully. It's going to be a major accomplishment for NASA, but still very much a test flight for this new equipment. NASA is still holding on to the idea that this could happen as early as 2025, but realistic forecasts seem to put this somewhere between 2026 and 2028. This is a really tricky mission because now a lot of moving parts from different places need to all come together perfectly. So, the third Artemis flight is much the same deal as the second one. SLS launches Orion, which takes people to orbit around the moon. But this time, they are going to the surface. The only problem being that Orion can't land. The thing about Orion is that it's designed to move people through deep space, but it's not designed to land them anywhere. Originally, there was supposed to be a fancy space station waiting for them in lunar orbit called the Gateway. That would have made for a transfer point between the two vehicles and given a place to chill for the other two Artemis crew members who don't get to walk on the moon. But NASA have conceded that Gateway won't be ready for Artemis 3, which is fine. The contract to build that human lander for Artemis 3 was awarded to SpaceX in 2021.
We've got some exclusive perks for our Patreon supporters, and it helps us grow the team and continue producing this content.
So, obviously one major hurdle that the Starship needs to clear within the next few months is a successful flight to orbit. Now that we are finally done with waiting on the SLS, Starship is our next hotly anticipated rocket test, and we're still pretty hopeful that this can be done before the end of the year, but wouldn't bet heavily on it. Elon Musk seems to think that his company is pretty close to final testing now on the Starship. He tweeted on November 15th, "Next test is about 20 seconds firing with max oxygen fill to test autogenous pressurization, possibly one more static fire, and then orbital launch attempt." But Elon is no stranger to making overly optimistic predictions. She is a longtime SpaceX leader who is known for a pragmatic and methodical approach to aerospace development, so we're really looking to her on a realistic timeline for when Starship gets off the ground. And then even if the orbital launch program all goes well and we see Starship reliably getting to space and back again, there is still a second major hurdle to overcome: orbital refilling. Because the Starship is so massive, it's going to burn a lot of methane and oxygen fuel just to reach orbit. Elon Musk says 3 or 4 sessions will get the job done. So that means SpaceX needs to put one tanker ship in orbit and then send probably 3 more transport ships up to dock with the tanker and transfer fuel. There were 10 strengths, 6 weaknesses, and 1 significant weakness. That one significant weakness was identified as the operational complexity of refueling the ship in orbit. NASA wrote in their report, quote, "SpaceX's mission depends upon an operations approach of unprecedented pace, scale, and synchronized movement of the vehicles in its architecture. This includes a significant number of vehicle launches in rapid succession, the refurbishment and reuse of those vehicles, and numerous in-space cryogenic propellant transfer events. However, these concerns are tempered because they entail operational risks in Earth orbit that can be overcome more easily than in lunar orbit, where an unexpected event would create a much higher risk to loss of mission." Elon Musk has said that SpaceX intends to begin testing their orbital docking and refilling procedure within the first year of Starship operation. This is going to be a very different beast from the design that we are seeing at Starbase. So the top half of the current ship is just a big empty cargo bay. The HLS Starship will need to have a pressurized crew compartment with a life support system. People are going to live in there for several days, and they need to be comfortable. So That's going to be the topmost section of the ship, with a hatch probably on the nose of the rocket. Starship is super tall, 50 meters in height, and the access door for the cargo section is going to be about halfway up the vehicle. And unlike the existing Starship, which uses those main Raptor engines for a controlled landing on Earth, the lunar ship is going to have an extra set of thrusters built into the side that will control the slow descent to the surface of the moon. It does not need a heat shield or aero flaps because the HLS will never return to Earth. The ship will need to successfully complete one uncrewed test landing demonstration on the moon and then return successfully to lunar orbit. SpaceX seems optimistic that this test landing can happen in 2024, so hopefully that can align fairly closely with Artemis 2, and that could mean that in just 2 years from now, we will know for sure if people are ready to go back to the moon. And not only will a SpaceX Starship be returning humans to the moon for the first time in 50 years, NASA has already selected the Starship as their preferred design for ongoing operations on the moon in the future of the Artemis program. This is an Option B clause from the first HLS contract between NASA and SpaceX. NASA's HLS program manager told reporters in a statement, "Continuing our collaborative efforts with SpaceX through Option B furthers our resilient plans for regular crewed transportation to the lunar surface and establishing a long-term human presence under Artemis." So, we've got a lot of major Starship milestones to look forward to over the next couple of years. The first orbital flight, the first landing, the first orbital refilling, and the first moon landing. So let us know what you're most excited to see and when you think Artemis 3 will make its crewed landing on the moon.
Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up today. That is so important for getting our content out to more people. If you enjoy the content, then you'd probably also enjoy our weekly newsletter. So sign up with the link down below at theteslaspace.com. A huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters who are listed on the screen now. You help us make the best content we can, and we really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.